Throughout the past year, the 5 of us officers have grown incredibly close. We live together, we eat together, we work together. There aren't too many people in this world that know our teammates better than we do. However, I can think of one person who might come close to knowing this next speaker as well as we do. Please welcome to the stage, Miss Katie Tobin.
Our next speaker is the biggest inspiration of my life. As a little boy, he was always reading or playing with his plastic animals. He was a very quiet boy until his freshman year of high school when he began to come out of the shell. The FFA had a strong influence on that. Now, he is excited to meet everyone who is involved with FFA and wants to talk in front of crowds to explain how the FFA has impacted his life. I am very honored to call him my big brother. Please help me introduce your FFA State Vice President and my big brother, Jim Tobin.
This convention is all about celebrating success. You know, over the past 3 days, we've recognized everybody from agri-science students to our sponsors and everybody in between. We all love the feeling of being successful, and in fact, I'd wager that every single one of you in the crowd right now has something to be proud of. Whether you're about to receive your state FFA degree, or you're a parent who has in fact raised their kid right, or maybe you're that child that was selected by your peers to represent the FFA chapter here at convention. We all love to feel successful. There is no greater feeling in this entire world than coming home a champion. But sometimes, when we're up on top of that mountain, it can be easy to forget that we may not always be successful. We can and we probably will fail from time to time. You know, in life it's important to take pride in our success, but let's not forget that in order to learn and to grow, we have to not only experience failure, but learn from it as well. Flash back about 6 years or so, and you'll find in the corner of an 8th grade classroom, little Jimmy at the height of awkwardness. Now at this point in time in my career, all my friends were knee-deep in those ridiculous junior high romances that we all know so much about. But not me. I was above it all, content to sit on the sidelines and leave all that foolishness to my friends. Until one day, for some reason or another, when I got on the bus, I decided enough was enough. I had to see what I was missing out on. I had to find out what was so special about that. So I mustered up every ounce of courage I could, and I told myself today was going to be the day that I brought home a girlfriend. Now brace yourselves, because I know this may come as a shock to some of you, but I have not always been the stunningly handsome ladies' man that stands before you today. Because of that, I needed a plan. I needed something foolproof, a real masterpiece to ensure my success, so I got to work. I figured out the whats, the wheres, the hows, the whens, and yes, even the who's of my plan, all in that one morning. And by the time that the bell rang for algebra, I was ready. I walked out the door, I strutted out the door with every bit of confidence that an 8th grader could muster, because in my hand, I held a note. Yeah, I know, right? And on this note, I had written in my most perfect penmanship, which isn't very perfect, "Will you go to the movies with me this Saturday? If so, please sit by me on the bus after school. Jimmy Tobin." Best plan ever, I know. So I'm walking down the hallway. I walked straight up to her locker, chest puffed out, as confident as can be. And then as quickly and as quietly as I could, I stuck the note in the top slot of her locker and bolted in the next classroom before anybody could see what I was doing. Now I know that may not be the most brave or the most romantic thing that anybody's ever done, but it was my plan, and I was so proud of it. So I settled into my next class, and the class after that, waiting, watching the minute hand drag by on the clock. That was the longest afternoon of my young life, I can guarantee you that. And finally, 3:10 rolled around, I'm out the door, on the bus, I found the perfect seat, and I dug in, because nobody but her was sitting in that seat next to me. After what seemed like forever of fighting off all my classmates, there she was. She climbed up the bus steps, and I had one of those big, stupid smiles on your face, and I knew I had to look ridiculous, but I didn't care, because I was about to be successful. She got a little bit closer down the aisle, my mind started to race, playing scenario after scenario through my head, each one ending in a greater victory than the last. She got a little closer still. At this point, my smile physically hurt. But it didn't matter because I was seconds away from being a champion. And then, the moment finally came. She was right next to my seat. I looked over at her. She looked over at me. Our eyes met. And she walked right past me. Failure and rejection. Absolutely awful. Now, if you've ever been one of those broken-hearted junior high students, you know at that point in time in our lives, we don't necessarily deal with our emotions the best, you can say. So I didn't really know what I was feeling or how to describe it in words, but I knew one thing. It was awful. Absolutely terrible. You see, when we experience failure in life, we sometimes feel alone. But I promise you that we're not. In fact, I'd like to ask everybody a question. Have you ever failed? In fact, if so, if you're able to, go ahead and stand up if you've ever set your mind to something and not accomplished it. Let's be cheers for failure. See, it's very obvious. Every single one of us has experienced our fair share of failure. It's part of our everyday lives. It's an important part of the human condition. But have we ever stopped to think, why do we fail? What makes a failure? What is a failure? Well, when I think of a failure, at least the definition of it, it's pretty straightforward. I think of it simply as not succeeding. I don't know what else you could think of a failure as being. So I guess the next logical question is, what's a success? Well, I think a success is setting a goal and accomplishing it. The exact opposite of failure, right? The real question, the million-dollar one that everybody in this room wants to know the answer to, what separates the two? What is the difference between an absolute, total failure and a great success? Now, before we find our answer to that question, it's important to realize failure is part of life. It happens to everybody. It can happen at any time. If you're as big a fan of the show Mythbusters as I am, then you know the phrase very well. Failure is always an option. It doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing, what time it is, we always have the possibility to fail. Take, for example, my time in high school. Now, throughout my entire high school career, I was at the top of just about everything. I was the best in my class, I had great working relationships with my teachers, and I was an officer in just about every club and organization that you could possibly imagine. To be honest, it got to my head a little bit, but I mean, come on, I am great, so there's that. Thank you. And it was with that same cockiness that I opened my letter from Southern Illinois University. That was March, my senior year, at the height of scholarship season, and a few weeks before, I had filled out every application known to man. Well, what else is there to do besides sit back, relax, and let all those checks roll in, right? Except for this one scholarship, the big one, the one I wanted more than any other, the full ride presidential scholarship at Southern Illinois University. It had me checking the mailbox every single day. So you can imagine my excitement when I finally came home from school, opened the mailbox, and there it was. I opened the letter, unfolded it, and took a look. But I immediately knew something was wrong. You see, it was my letter, there's no doubt about that. My address and name were right there on it. but that first line had to be some kind of mistake. It read, "We regret to inform you." I didn't even read the rest of that letter. I had been rejected for the scholarship that I wanted more than anything else at that point in time. I had put in the hard work, I had stuck my neck out there, and I had been shot down. I stood in my kitchen, a senior in high school, not used to failing, and there wasn't a bit of difference between me and 8th grade Jimmy on that bus. Defeated, tail between my legs, a failure. But I guess it's like they say, time does heal all wounds, and eventually I did get over the presidential scholarship, although I never quite forgot about how it felt to be rejected, how it felt to hold that rejection letter in my hand. A few months later, though, after setting my sights on other opportunities, I hit the jackpot. And it just so happens that that amazing opportunity that I took advantage of happened right here on this very stage 1 year ago. When I was elected your state FFA vice president, I had no idea about the year that I was in for. It's been a year of amazing things. I've seen places I'd only read about, met new friends that will last me a lifetime, and done things that I didn't even think were possible. It has truly been an amazing year, and a lot of the things that we've had that chance to do have been very last second, I guess, unexpected. It was something that took me by surprise more than anything else. See, about halfway through my year, I found out that I could reapply for that presidential scholarship. Full ride scholarship. You obviously fill it out, right? I didn't want to. I'd stuck my neck out there once. I had put the hard work into it once, and they rejected me. I'd already had to go to everybody that looked up to me, everybody that believed in me, and tell them that I'd failed once. Why in the world would I take the chance to do it again? It just didn't make any sense. But eventually, I decided to go ahead and fill it out anyway. So I filled out the application, wrote my essay, and was eventually asked to come down for another interview. Well, that's great. What do I do in this interview? Walk into the room, shake the hands of my judges and say, "I don't know if you remember me or not, but I'm Jim, and you told me I couldn't have this last year. I'd like you to reconsider." Like that's going to work. So I put some hard thought into it and found out what made the difference, how I could convince them that I had been successful. And the answer is pretty simple. You see, since I'd been rejected until my new interview, I'd had a lot of opportunities. A lot of amazing, life-changing opportunities that I could tell them about, that had changed me for the better. So I walked into that interview room, shook the hands of my judges, and I told them everything. About my opportunity to travel in China, about my opportunity to meet new folks from all around the country, my opportunity to speak in over 150 high schools throughout the state of Illinois, my opportunity to serve an organization that had done so much for me. And at the end of my time in the interview room, I got up, shook their hands, and walked out the door feeling pretty good about myself. But I cautiously reminded myself, I felt like this before. I'd been here 1 year before that, and I'd still been rejected. So I got back to work as a state officer, tried to push the presidential scholarship as far from my mind as I could. And it wasn't until about a month or two later that I received another letter from SIU. This one was congratulating me on being selected as a presidential scholar at Southern Illinois University. Obviously, I felt pretty happy when I opened my letter. That's pretty big news getting the full ride scholarship, But I couldn't help but think back to 1 year before when I held that rejection letter in my hand. It's clear looking back that I had a choice that day. I could, one, let that failure defeat me. Let it determine who I am as a person. Or two, I could keep moving, keep looking, and take advantage of every opportunity that came across my path. Well, I'm happy to say that I chose that second opportunity, or that second option, which led me to these opportunities, such as being your state FFA vice president, and all the other things that have made me into who I am today. You see, When we encounter failure, we have a choice. We can let it define who we are, or we can keep moving. Now, I'm not saying that I don't stumble, I don't fall, I don't experience my fair share of failure still, because I do. But I've learned that if we can keep open minds and making good decisions, we will always have the opportunity to be successful. In fact, opportunities are all around us. And I think we found the answer to our question earlier. Do you remember it? What's the difference between a success and a failure? Well, I think it's seizing opportunity. When we fail, it doesn't mean that we've lost. It simply means we have the opportunity to find success somewhere else. Sadly, today's world puts such an emphasis on a win-lose mentality. We make it almost impossible to fail and still feel good about yourself. We're brought up to think that failure is bad or even unacceptable, and as a result, our generation has an innate fear of failure. But the fact of the matter is, failure can't be avoided. It happens every single day. You might be the kid that poured their heart and soul into studying. You worked with your teacher every day after school. You read every inch of that textbook. You did every homework assignment, but your grades just don't improve. Maybe you're the kid that loves their parents to death, but no matter how many times you try, every single conversation ends in an argument. Or maybe you're that FFA member that worked their tail off on their project or record book, but still just came this shy of getting that chapter award you had your eye on. When we experience failure, we have a choice. In fact, coming to failure is a lot like coming to a crossroads. Down one path leads self-pity, a poor attitude, and an unending string of failures. That other path, well, it's an opportunity. And believe me, if we can keep working hard, if we can stay motivated, make good decisions, and keep open-minded, we can always find success. All we have to do is seize that opportunity. I know sometimes when we try to seize opportunity, it can be very risky. We can open ourselves up to look foolish or weak to others, but we can't let the fear of how others perceive us define who we are and keep us from tapping our best potential. Instead, let's take each small failure and turn them into building blocks for a greater success. Illinois FFA members, advisors, and guests, never stop seizing miles of opportunity. Never let failure define who you are. Always seek the opportunity to learn more and to do better. And when you've done all that, you can define yourself.
Well, after that story, are you Jim or Jimmy?
I think a lot worse.
All right, we'll go with what's on the plaque then. Jim, we've enjoyed your sense of humor that gets a grin out of everyone around. Your realistic input improved our team and kept us focused on the things that matter. Your passion for agriculture has been evident through your hard work and dedication to our organization. We may not go to college together, but we love the 12 months that we've spent together. Teammates for the year, brothers for life. Mike, Chris, Jacob, and Clayton. Your state vice president, Jim Tobin.